Okay, welcome to Watercolor Studio 42, and today I'm going to talk a little bit about some things like still life. Now, still life is any object out there that you look at and it sits there. It's not moving. It's not a living thing, probably, and for the most part. But it's a man-made object, possibly. Now, I could probably entitle my paintings today as being like finding clutter. But you can look around anywhere. Now, in my situation, and I guess it's probably with a lot of other homes, there's a particular table that's kind of located in a spot where everybody just kind of drops off things, like when you come in with the house with the mail plops on there, and all these other little bottles and pens and pencils and you name it. It's a collect-all table. So I call it the clutter. It gets a bit of a clutter sometimes. And then you look around, and some people put a lot of little objects, they collect little trinket things, and they put those on the windowsill or any shelf that they may have, and they collect all these little items. And so when you look at it, you see all these different variations of shapes and so forth, and colors and patterns and so forth. Well, all of those things collectively could make a pretty good still life picture. Bottles, cans, whatever it might be. I was going to bring maybe some of my groceries in, some of my different shaped cans, and bottles and so forth. One of the most popular bottles right now with the heat wave and everything is the water bottles, and we've got quite a collection of those. They add up pretty fast in the recycle. So I'm going to show you a little bit how I go about doing some of these things by cutting out little patterns and tracing them. And so you could take any like a heavier piece of paper. Not too heavy, but something that's easy to cut, if you fold it. You got a double piece there. And so you can take a pair of scissors, and I'm just going to cut at random, like a bottle shape. And right now, it could be a soda bottle. Soda cans, of course, they're very popular too. But it could be a water bottle. So here I am cutting around here. You got the neck of the bottle, and then there's the little part that the cap screws around at the top. So we'll give it a little this and that, a little bit of a twist here and there, and cut the shape out. Now, you could open it up, and you get the shape that's symmetrical, same on both sides. So that's not a bad shaped bottle. If you want to distort it and change it a little bit, you can. And so I've got that one cut out. Now I'm going to do some different other little shapes. This could be like maybe like a perfume bottle or whatever that you might find probably in the bathroom area. Let's do this. Let's cut around here. And this one, we're going to give it a little bit of a curve at the bottom, because all bottles have to be flat, I guess, on the bottom to be able to stand out. We'll come out like this, and then it comes around. You see what I'm doing here. Now, you can cut any shape you want. I mean, that's up to you. And even if you have a bottle that's sort of a simple, basic shape, you can still distort it, put a few little bumps and things in the design of it. Now, around the neck, we'll make this a little bit different. This might have a little bit of a different top to it. So now we got this particular shape. This is pretty common You see that quite often, that particular, like perfume bottles or whatever, cologne bottles you might have. So there's another shape. So now we got two different shapes. Now what I'd like to do here is to vary the size a little bit. So I'm going to make another one, another bottle, and let's see, we'll keep it straight across the bottom, somewhat. And this one's going to have a few little bumps in it, okay? A few bumps to it. And this could be any kind of container, I guess. But they design them sometimes so that you can grip them easier too, you know. I've got, well, we buy the coffee, large containers of coffee. Sometimes they have a little handle that you can grip it easy. Ketchup bottles are interesting now. You can tip them upside down and they're flat on the top, so the ketchup doesn't stay on the bottom of the bottle, and you try to shake it forever to get the ketchup to flow. Well, now they have them so that you can put them away upside down, and the ketchup's at the top when you open it. Works pretty good. Here's another little shape here. Almost like a little guitar shape here. Not really. This could be like one of those little glue bottles, ink bottles, and so forth. Now, all of these little shapes you may have, obviously, around the house. So you can kind of get a whole collection together, kind of set them up on the table or wherever, and then do a little contour drawing of these particular shapes. Let's see, we've got 3 different shapes here to work from, different sizes a little bit, and whatnot. So if you do a little still life, consider the size and the shapes that you're working with. You don't want to do like, well, you could, but you probably wouldn't want to do the same repetition of the shape, but you could, because you can trace it different ways on the paper, on your watercolor paper. But this is very common today. Boy, these so-called water bottles are everywhere. So now you've got some scraps left over, but also you've got the positive shape that you've removed from here, but a lot of people like to trace around the contour of this part. So you've got 2 things that you can manipulate around on your paper. You can use either one, the negative space and the positive. I guess that's what you'd refer to. So anyways, maybe for me today it might be easier to just look at some of the negative shapes. Let's see what we have here. Yeah, we've got 2 together. Yeah, you get the 2. Okay, now so these would be more like the common stencil that you would buy. You can buy the stencils, you know, usually people like to buy the stencils for lettering or numbers and so forth. You can buy the stencils all different sizes and so forth to trace the shapes onto whatever you want to label. Okay, so let's have some fun with this. I'm just going to go around with this, find a marker here, and trace around this bottle, okay? Now, I'm going to pretend that the bottles are basically sitting on a table, but you can have them placed in a way that you're looking down or looking up at them, depending on whatever you want to do with your picture. Let's start. Oh, I got to remind myself always to know where the center is. So I put some marks on the tape where the center would be vertically as well as horizontal. Okay, so So that helps me kind of do my arrangement. What I don't want to try to do is make everything look too symmetrical. I don't want to put this in the middle and have the same thing to the left side of it or the right side. So let's offset this one, see what we can do. Okay, remember you can use either one. You can trace around this, or you can trace around what I'm doing, like what you'd find usually as a stencil. Let's see if I can come down around here. All right, come down around here, come back up. Now, I've been using markers lately to do some of my drawings, because when I watch these things on television sometimes, they don't come out too good, you know. So now if you want to make a line a little bit wider, just move your stencil over a little bit. And which side is going to be the shadow side? I usually make that a little darker. So let's see if I can offset this a little bit. You can use a wider marker too to do this, but I'm going to see if I can line up my stencil here and get this thing so it makes a heavier line, okay? So I'm going to come down here again. I'm going to follow the same contour that I did the first time. Just go right around the inside here. Might not be exactly the same, but you get the idea of how that works. And see how you can make that side a little bit heavier. Now, I went off my line a little bit, but you can touch that up. That's not a big problem. You can hide that with something else, another bottle in back, okay? So we got that shape there. Now, let's put another one of these in here. Let's go around this one and have this one sort of in back of the other one. So this is going to be in back of this one. So we'll stop there and pick it up around the bottom, coming up around here. I like to overlap some of the shapes. There we go. See something like that? Now, if you still want to use this particular shape, you can do, while you've got it in your hand, we can come around in through here. Let's just see if I can get this to work. I'm not so crazy about that idea though. See what I can do with this one. Well, okay. We'll try this. These two shapes are very similar to each other. So, not in size though. Okay, let's come around here. Stop there. This one's going to be kind of in back of the other one also. Okay, across the bottom. Come around this side a little bit. See where we are here. Okay. All right. Come down here. Here we go. Now, you can offset these a little bit if you want. Let's repeat this one back up in here. And that can be off here somewhere. Let's go around this shape here. Okay. Now, if you want to make this shape a little bit different, obviously you can. Here we are. I guess that's, I've got to finish that off, something like that. And let's see what else we can add here. I drew this one, but I'm not crazy about it because it's too wide a neck there. But you know what you can do? You can always change it. You know, let's say if you got this shape, similar to this one, if you want to change the shape of it, you could just recut it again and just use it same shape again. I think it was this one. If you don't like the shape of the neck, just take a pair of scissors again and just kind of redesign it a bit. Make it maybe make it a little bit thinner here. Here we go. Now it still can have a little bit of a curve to it at the top. Yeah. Let's take a little bit more off here. I'm just showing this so how you can use these shapes in various ways. You know, Now this one can go a little bit higher here, okay? See what that does. Okay, we'll come down here, pick it up over here, come around this way. You can go to the edge, go right to the edge, hit the tape if you want, see it? And by doing that, you're breaking up that large background shape. Let's do the same thing over here. Maybe you can break this up a little bit over here. Just come around here with the bottle shape. Now, when you get good at this, if you get to a point where you can do it freehand, that's probably even better. Like if you set up a whole bunch of bottles, you can look at it, and without lifting your pencil or your marker, you can trace the contour, you know, with your eyes, and transfer that onto your paper, and that will come out pretty good also. So we've got an interesting background. We've got the shapes broken up quite a bit here. If you want, you can do something else with the bottom here. You can add another shape coming in here. You can have a bottle, something, part of a bottle tipped over, or it could be other objects that you put in the picture. If you don't want these to be about the same height, you can always put something that breaks it up. Let's put a third something in here. Let's put this in here, a little bit lower. Okay, something like that. Just have that come around here. And so you could do something like that. Now, the bottles can also be transparent so that you can see through them. So, you know, if you wanted to show something that's transparent, you can also do that with the objects, so forth. Now, once you have an interesting pattern, this is up to you. If you want to just make the bottles have a little bit of a design on them, you can do that almost freehand if you want. So let's say if you wanted to do something like this on this bottle, see, maybe with the label, you could do something like that. This one could have something else that goes in here, break that up, break it up in here. That's up to you, how you want to make the arrangement. Some bottles have like little bumps in them. You could put some little bumps on the maybe a glass bottle or plastic bottle. It could have like little bumps, so that when you grip it, it has a little more texture that you can hang on to. So you could do different things with the bottle shapes. And like I said, sometimes you can just freehand, just set up a little display on the table, or just look at what's on the table there, and just kind of lock it in, you know, what area you want to work from. And you can sometimes move like a little window around. I usually cut out a little window and just move it around to see where there's an interesting area. You can do that with about anything. A vase of flowers, you got a whole vase of flowers, and you don't want to do all the flowers. Just pick out a particular part of the arrangement of the flowers and just paint that part of it. So you can do a lot of different things. Same way with the bottles here. Okay, now I don't know if we want to add any more texture to this or not. You can add, like I said, you can do anything you want with the bottle shapes. So I think that looks okay. And do something else over here. All right, whatever you feel like doing. If you're looking down on an object too, you won't, straight at it, it looks flat. But if, let's say if you're looking down, you might see the curvature or the oval part of the top of a bottle. So it's a different way you look at the, you know, the bottle, turn it around in different positions. Okay, so that's that. This could be a tablecloth underneath here. You could do some little design with that if you want. So this is kind of a bottle still life. And the thing is, with the bottle still life, you want to make it kind of interesting. You don't have to use a lot of color. You can make different shapes and so forth, and break it up into different colors, whatever you want to do with it. Just to make it look more like a design thing. Okay, so you've got these for patterns, and you've got these objects that you can manipulate around and see how they look, on your paper. So I always save these little patterns. You never know when you could use them. Some might be a little bit more interesting to use than others. But use a pair of scissors and just fold a piece of paper and just cut half of whatever you want. Unfold it, you get the other half. I do it a lot of times with houses, but also like a lighthouse, where it's symmetrical. It's the same on pretty much both sides. So you can do that with a lighthouse a lot of times. I think I have one of the patterns in here somewhere in the box that I use for lighthouses. These are things. These are just ideas for folks that maybe don't feel as if they're competent about drawing. Then cut some shapes out and just trace them, and then make an arrangement and go ahead and decide to paint. Now, if I'm going to paint this today, I probably would do the background. The background doesn't have to be too busy, and like I tell everybody all the time, myself personally, I just start out with a lighter shade first. Maybe use a little bit of yellow in there for the background. Now, what I'm doing now is painting on dry paper. But let's say if I want to do wet in the wet, I wet the paper, and because I have some paint on the brush, you get a lighter shade when you manipulate it around here. Now, if you have a bottle that's transparent, of course you can see a little bit of the background showing through, the color of the background, whatever it is, you can see it. Oh, that's that. You notice if you come in with more paint, how much darker your yellow is. So anytime you want to lighten a color down, you just use a little bit of extra paint and less water. Okay, here we go. Let's go over here. We just do this background. This is like my kitchen at home. I'm using yellow because my kitchen has a light color. Okay, so that's what we're doing here. And believe me, we have a lot of little trinkets in our kitchen. And that's where the table is. That's where all the things that come into the house dropped on the table. I have quite a pile of some days I have a lot of mail, and I'm forever getting, and I'm quite sure you folks at home do, get a lot of advertisement. A lot of folks calling, looking for a donation, and you know, a lot of these things, these donations, I mean, they're worthwhile, but you know, you have to kind of hold a line somewhere. I always tell them that I give to my local organizations first. They're forever calling from all over the country, and I said, gee, I mean, I have to take care of my local organizations first, and they should try closer to home with their own their own state where they live, you know, and whatnot. So here we go. That's some background. That's my kitchen. Okay. Now the table, the kitchen table is a little bit brown, darker texture. It can be, well, that's got a, it looks a little bit more sort of a wineish color here, but my table is definitely more of a brown. I'm using a little bit of the color that I had, the yellow. Raw sienna is another color that I use quite often. Again, yeah, that's getting a little bit too much red there. We'll quiet that down a little bit, put some darker shades in there. Of course, you're going to see shadows around the bases of the objects anyways. Let's bring this up into here. Yeah, you'll see some shadows, you know, here and there. Go around here, a little bit over there. Let's get up in the corner there. Okay. I don't worry about going over the lines a little bit, you know. Watercolor is like that. You might put something down on the paper, but, you know, if you go over the line, it really, if that bothers you, but just pick it up before it dries. Just blot it. Here we go. Let's add a little bit more brown into this thing. That's better. Okay, go around the corner. Go right to the edge. Go right to the edge of the tape. Go up into here. Okay. Now, having said that, I'm talking about brown here. Let's give this another coat because it's got kind of a wine color. A little bit too much red in there. My table at home. It's almost like it's a maple. It's a maple wood, but I think it has a little bit lighter than, or I should say, a little bit darker brown than this. Okay, you can give it another coat as you go along. Sometimes when you mix wet in and wet with watercolor, what you're doing is just mixing colors on the paper. So, why not? All right. Now, what we want to do, we want to decide what color we want to use. So some of these bottles. Let's try this one with a little bit of blue. Now, if it's glass or like a ceramic, it has like a glaze finish to it. It might be shiny, so you might see a little bit of highlight in there. So I leave some of the white in there of the paper, so to give that the effect. Okay. Now, distribution of color. So while I'm using that shade, why don't we paint this one similar? We'll put something up on this one. I'll put some more water on my brush here. Here we go. A little bit in there. Kind of come around the corner here. And a little bit in the corner. Now you notice a lot of times I don't change my brush very often. I may start off with a brush with a little bit of paint, a lighter color, but I stick with the brush for the most part, with a larger brush. You can always finish up with a small brush if you want to put some little bit fussier, detail into the work. Let's do a little bit with this. You notice when you, I got the blue on the brush, so I hit the yellow, so here we are with some green. How about that? You never know what's going to happen here. I do have a bottle home that is green. in the bathroom. All sorts of different shades here. That looks like a sort of a bulky bottle, but okay. It's not the best, little stylized shape in the world, but nevertheless. So now, see what else we could do. Now we can come back, and I'm going to just put a little bit of a red. Put some red, and let's see, red. I don't know if you caught my class last week, but I was doing a color distribution inside of sort of geometric shapes. And the thing was that I always try to have a distribution of color somewhere, repeated somewhere, at least maybe in 3 areas. Okay? Here we go. Now, having said that, I repeated that shade of blue twice. I can put it somewhere else. Let's jump back, see if I can put a little bit of that color down in here. How's that? Yeah, 1, 2, 3. See how you can kind of jump around. And a lot of times when I'm painting, I've said this because I do it all the time anyway, but I jump around when I paint. A lot of times I jump around when I'm painting, and I don't paint one particular area. I had a student one time, I won't name names, but I won't say it was a he or a she, but a person. And they would tend to paint and work in one corner. And then they'd blot it and erase it and start over. Well, pretty soon you're wearing out the paper because you can't keep blotting and erasing and so forth. So I said to this person, I said, why don't you forget about that area here and do something else somewhere else, rather than to wear the paper out in that one spot. So that person did, and after a while they got used to color distribution, using color somewhere else. They repeat some of the little bit of this brown they have here. And you just put it in places. So it's kind of color distributed. Now that bottle's a little bit green. That was a little bit of a surprise because it touched some of the blue and the yellow was wet. So what I do is just put a little bit of green here. So I'm sort of thinking of this as more or less using the bottles like as a design of sorts. And don't worry about it. What's that fellow? He says, don't worry, be happy, right? Be happy. All right. We'll try to be happy, okay? Here's your green distribution, right? Here you go. See how things are working now? Kind of a color distribution. Now, it doesn't have to be any painting that you're working on. A lot of times, you do the same thing. If it's a landscape, hey, a green tree, green tree, green tree, a sand on the beach, sand here, sand there. Jump around on your paper, and do that. Okay. So this one I haven't hit too much. We could put a little bit of red up in there, pink, if you will. Got plenty of pink there. I don't know what happens if I hit this on top of green. Make the complementary color red with green just makes the green darker, depending on, it works both ways. If you got red and you drop a little green in it, it just makes red a little bit darker. Complementary colors will do that. And those are the ones that are across directly across from each other on that color wheel, if you've seen those before. Okay, now let's put a little bit of orange. I haven't tried orange yet. Okay, orange here, maybe a little bit in here. Let's drop some in there, just a hint. Okay, now 1, 2, 3 places. That's all right. 4. Maybe do a lot more of the orange here. I tend not to use orange as much. I don't know why, but I should more often, I guess. But my orange is great for a lot of times, the very bright sunsets, and I put some orange in there. I like to use orange with sunsets, but also it works well with some of my other shades. You can try it. You know, a lot of times you don't have brown. You take a little bit of your blue and mix it with the orange, and you get a brown. That's what I'm doing right now. I do have brown, but see, it's a brown shade. Let's put some over here. You're gonna have to put some in here, over here. Try to jump around. Now, a lot of times you don't know how these things are going to come out. Like I said, I talked about this last week. Don't expect everything to be a real super colossal masterpiece, because sometimes these things work, sometimes they don't. And these are just experiments. And like I tell everybody, hey, it's paper. You got plenty of paint, and experiment with the colors. Okay, there you go. All right. Now, what I have here is a lot of white. So I may want to make a decision that I want to fill some of that in more. Now, I know I can do some shadow on the right side. I can come in. Now, if you're not sure what color to use, sometimes you can just use a sort of what we call a neutral color, like a gray, and just do like a shading on one side. See how you can kind of put that in? You could try it. One thing, if you're going to do some painting a lot of times, don't be afraid to experiment with it when you're first starting out, and experiment. You can read all the books in the world about how to do this, that, and the other thing. But the bottom line is that you want to do it. It's the same way anything that you work on. I mean, puzzle, recipes, cooking, you're doing something, and you work on it and see what happens, right? I think I want to go a little darker. Right down in here. This is going to have a little deeper shadow there, right along that edge. Now, also, if you do that, just repeat it on some of the others. This to this. Put some of that in there. Put some over here. Huh? Give everybody an equal distribution. Now, there might be some shadow that may be cast on the table, too. That's another thing you might want to do. This kind of makes things come alive. So the light's coming from the left to right. So you might see some shadow up inside here, over and back here. So you'll see the shadow of this bottle, and so forth. And a little shadow underneath. And on this side, a little shadow some more. So you see, I'm jumping around. Sometimes when you're painting, if you put something down, don't panic. Let's say if you put something in the wrong spot, you take one of these little paper towels that you have handy. I usually keep one in my hand. Let's say I dropped this, I don't want that there. Pick it up quick. See that? You can pick it up quick, and nobody knows the difference. I kind of liked it there, so I'm going to leave it. I'm going to put it back. I'm going to put it back in. Okay. If you do it with this one, you might want to try it over here. Put something over here. See how that works? So you're kind of jumping around. So my bottles are taking on some sort of a characteristic. Now, you can come back in later on, and let's say you want to show some more detail, maybe a little pattern or design or some lettering or something that you might want to put in, and you can add some texture to it with that. Let's see what we have here. Okay, coming around here. Oh, I want to drop some more shadow right up in there. Right up in that location there. Put some more over here. Maybe a little darker up in that area. A little more shadow there. Now, if you feel that you want to do something else, this is too light, I sometimes go across the bottom and make the base a little darker. Okay, you can do that. That works out pretty good. So now, I've got a little bit of this done. I can putt around with it a little bit more. But what I'm going to do now is just put some the background shadow in here. Now, I hope the yellow is dry enough so I can do that. Yeah, put some shadow of the bottles in the background. That really makes them kind of become live. They become, more real and whatnot. But you've got all these objects at home, all these objects around the house that you can see you can work with. Oh, those shadows work good, don't they? They really pop things out a little bit more. Now, like I was saying, you've got plenty of objects to work from at home, but don't pick on something that's too complicated. Don't pick on like, strainers, all the little holes, although you can poke a few polka dots in there, but don't go crazy with something that's too busy looking, but start with these simple shapes, basically something like what I've done today, but probably make them a little bit more interesting as far as the contour goes. But that gives you an idea how that works. Now, I make sure that I've got everything paint right up to the edge, and I'm going to pull the tape off because we're running a little bit out of time, but not too bad. Not too bad. I've been trying to do a little bit lately how to kind of break things down a little bit more. I got a thing in the mail the other day from Boys Town, and the artist there, he's an excellent painter, and but he does all the fussy stuff. Oh, pumpkins in the field, he put all the markings in the leaves and everything in, all the spokes on the tires. Oh my gosh. He spent an awful lot of time working on what he was doing there. And my gosh, myself, I can't do that. I really can't spend a lot of time being too fussy. That's why a lot of times I paint with a big brush so I don't get all the picky, with things. And so that's a particular style that I have. And to me, if it looks okay, I hope somebody else will think it looks all right, okay. So now I'm going to just pull the tape off here around this. Sometimes a little bit of paint gets underneath. This is sort of like a false matte, kind of. But you can use this. You can take this and put it inside of a frame. and it looks like it's finished. It looks like it's finished piece of work. Now what I usually do is I pick a spot, maybe on the left side, and what I usually do is kind of put in my initial name here. There you go. Sign it. Here you go. So that's it, folks. My cluttered picture of bottles. And start out, don't go crazy with all the busy patterns that might be on the bottle. Find some easier shapes to work from, and kind of repeat the shapes, repeat the variation of size, and then distribution of color throughout, so that you kind of pull everything together, you know. So that's how that works. So I hope that you keep that in mind. And in this particular time of year, lately it's been terribly warm and muggy and hot. And myself, I haven't been outside as much to paint. But what I usually try to do is find a shady spot, you know, like paint underneath an umbrella, so the sunlight is not on your paper. You know, you don't want the sun hitting the paper directly, but you want to be in the shadow or in the shade, if you will, so that you're keeping cooler. But also, you don't want the sunlight beating on the paper. And another factor with watercolor, of course, if you got too much sunlight, your paint and water is going to dry awful fast. And sometimes you don't want your painting to dry out that quickly. So you want to make sure that you don't have too much direct sunlight or heat on the paper. So sort of be safe. And I always keep a bottle of water handy too. Drink plenty of water when you're outside. Painting is not real tough labor, but just the heat itself kind of, you know, can be bothersome. So this is it. This is the bottles, okay? And believe me, you can get all sorts of different variations of shapes and sizes. If you don't have interesting shapes around, when you cut out a pattern, you know, fold the paper, and you could go all sorts of different, you know, shapes and so forth, and place them down, see what it looks like. This one here is a little bit too wide on the neck, I think, but anyways, that's it. So until next time, we'll see you, and remember, brushes up, okay? And take care and keep cool.